When someone you love starts to pull away, it can feel like your entire world is collapsing. You replay every conversation, every text, every moment, wondering what you said wrong, what you did wrong, why they suddenly seem cold, detached, or distant. And if that person happens to be an avoidant, the confusion cuts even deeper. Because avoidants don't just walk away, they disappear in silence. They retreat into their shells like emotional ghosts, leaving you to wrestle with the emptiness they left behind. But let me tell you something. This silence doesn't mean you're not enough. It doesn't mean you're unworthy. And it sure as hell doesn't mean you should chase them. You see, avoidants fear closeness the same way most people fear loss. When connection deepens, their nervous system goes into survival mode. They don't know how to stay when things get real, so they run. But here's the twist. The moment you send the right message, not with desperation, not with pleading, but with grounded power, something shifts inside them. The message I'm about to share with you isn't just a text. It's energy. It's the vibration of self-worth. It says, I see you pulling away and I respect your space, but I also respect myself enough not to chase what's running. When you're ready to meet with honesty and calm, I'm here. Until then, I wish you peace. That message does something no begging text ever could. It pierces through their avoidance by showing them what they're most afraid of. A person who's strong enough to love without clinging, calm enough to walk away without hate, and secure enough to not need their validation. When an avoidant reads this message, they pause. Their nervous system feels something unfamiliar: safety. You've removed the pressure, the chase, the emotional demand. But more importantly, you've reclaimed your power. And that's when everything starts to change. Because the truth is, you don't heal by pulling someone closer. You heal by standing still in your strength and letting the energy of peace draw the right people back to you. So let's go deeper into the 6 psychological and emotional reasons why this message transforms your dynamic with an avoidant and makes them re-evaluate everything they thought they knew about you. When you emotionally detach from an avoidant, you're not abandoning them, you're stabilizing yourself. See, most people think love means holding on tighter when someone pulls away. But true strength lies in the ability to let go without losing love. Emotional detachment is not indifference. It's clarity. It's choosing to remain centered even when someone else is spiraling. Avoidants are hypersensitive to pressure. When they sense emotional demand, their subconscious registers danger. Their instinct says, run. And every message you send out of anxiety, why aren't you replying? Or, did I do something wrong? Reinforces that fear. But when you stop chasing, when your energy says, I'm calm, I'm grounded, and I don't need to control the outcome, it disarms them. This shift in energy is magnetic. Suddenly, you're not the pursuer, you're the peaceful anchor. You've stopped vibrating at the frequency of desperation and started vibrating at the frequency of self-trust. That's when the avoidant feels something strange. They feel safe. And safety is what every avoidant craves but never admits. The moment you detach, they begin to wonder, why aren't they chasing me anymore? That curiosity pulls them back. Not your words, not your begging, but your silence, your strength, your stillness. So remember, detachment doesn't push them away. It gives them the space they need to return with awareness. It says, I respect you enough to not invade your peace, but I respect myself enough to protect mine. That's emotional mastery, and that's how you shift the entire dynamic. When an avoidant pulls away, silence becomes their weapon. It's how they protect themselves from intimacy, from emotion, from the fear of being seen. But what most people never realize is this: your calm energy speaks louder than their withdrawal ever could. Silence is not a vacuum, it's a frequency. It carries energy. When they go quiet, you have a choice. You can match their silence with anxiety, panic, and overthinking, or you can match it with peace, patience, and power. Every time you overreact, chase, or try to fix the situation, you confirm their hidden belief that connection equals pressure. You reinforce their inner story that love isn't safe. But when you remain calm, when you breathe, hold your center, and let your energy stay grounded, you interrupt that pattern completely. Avoidants expect chaos after they pull away. They expect your emotions to explode. But imagine the impact when your response is peace. When they vanish, and instead of breaking, you simply glow in silence. You post your life, you move forward, you grow. You radiate an energy that says, I'm not broken, I'm balanced. That calmness unsettles their defenses. Why? Because now they're not in control of the emotional narrative. Your peace becomes the loudest message you could ever send. It's the message that says, you no longer have emotional power over me. And here's what happens next, something remarkable. That calmness begins to haunt their thoughts. Avoidants, at their core, crave emotional safety. But safety doesn't come from words. It comes from energy. When they sense that you're no longer reactive, that you're operating from peace, something inside them shifts. The walls they built begin to tremble. You see, calmness is not weakness. It's a mirror. When you stay calm, they're forced to face their own discomfort. They can no longer project their fear onto you. They can no longer justify their distance by blaming your intensity. Your peace exposes their avoidance for what it truly is, fear masquerading as control. That's the moment your power becomes undeniable, because you're no longer playing the emotional game they understand. They can handle confrontation. They can handle guilt. But what they can't handle is your stillness, your ability to love them without needing them. So the next time they disappear, remember this truth: your calmness is communication. It's the kind of message that doesn't need words. It says, I'm emotionally independent. I don't need to chase validation. I'm safe within myself. And eventually, when their silence starts to echo back at them, it's not guilt that brings them back. It's gravity. The magnetic pull of your peace draws them in because deep down, it represents everything they secretly want but have never learned to create within themselves. You've stopped speaking their language of fear and started speaking the universal language of strength. That's when the entire dynamic changes, not because you said more, but because you said less. One of the hardest things to do when an avoidant pulls away is to stop chasing. Every part of you wants to reach out, to fix the misunderstanding, to remind them of your love, to bridge the silence. But the truth is, the more you chase, the more they run. Because for an avoidant, closeness feels like a threat, not because of you, but because of what closeness represents: vulnerability. When you stop chasing, something powerful happens. You interrupt their escape pattern. You take away the fuel that keeps their avoidance alive. Suddenly, they can't define you as the one who needs too much or the one who pressures me. Instead, they're forced to sit in their own silence and face themselves. Avoidants are used to running. They've spent years perfecting the art of emotional distance, shutting down, detaching, disappearing. But they're not used to someone who can stay calm and non-reactive. When you stop chasing, their old script doesn't work anymore. They expect chaos. They expect your energy to spiral into fear. But your calm detachment confuses them. It disarms their defense system. At first, they'll tell themselves they don't care. They'll say, good, I needed space anyway. But as the days pass, as they feel your energy fade, something begins to stir inside them, a sense of loss they can't logically explain. Avoidants don't respond to pressure, but they do respond to absence. Not the kind born from manipulation, but the kind born from self-respect. Because when you stop chasing, you communicate the most powerful truth. I trust my value enough to let you go if you can't meet me where I am. That statement, even if you never say it out loud, vibrates through every silent moment. It's not rejection, it's reflection. And in that reflection, the avoidant starts to feel the mirror turning toward them. They start to see their patterns. How every time intimacy deepens, they sabotage it. How every time someone loves them sincerely, they run. And for the first time, they realize they're the ones creating the emotional distance they fear. See, chasing allows an avoidant to keep their identity as the one in control. It lets them believe that you need them more than they need you. But when you stop, when you quietly release, they're left alone with themselves. And that's where the awakening begins. They start to miss your calm energy. They remember your presence not as pressure, but as peace. They start wondering what you're doing, who you're talking to, why you've gone so silent. That curiosity grows into reflection, and reflection for an avoidant is the first step toward emotional growth. This doesn't happen overnight. Avoidants process emotions slowly. But make no mistake, your silence is not being ignored. It's echoing in their mind, louder than any message you could have sent. Because the truth is, avoidants don't change from confrontation. They change from contrast. They evolve when they feel the difference between peace and pressure, and your stillness shows them exactly that. When you stop chasing, you don't lose them. You give them the space to rediscover you through their own lens. You allow them to step toward you voluntarily, not out of guilt, not out of fear, but out of curiosity and emotional recognition. This is how you shift the entire dynamic from anxiety to magnetism, because now you're not demanding love, you're embodying it. You're no longer trying to get attention. You've become the calm presence that draws attention effortlessly. Remember this truth. People who value control are disarmed by peace. When you stop chasing, you give them the silence they can't escape, the silence that makes them face their truth. And that's when they start to come back, not because they pity you, but because they respect you. You've shown them something they've never seen before, love that stands tall, even when it's not reciprocated. That's the kind of love that makes avoidants rethink everything. Avoidants aren't heartless. They're guarded. They build walls not because they don't feel, but because they feel too much. Their nervous system has learned that closeness equals danger and distance equals control. So when you love them, they take your consistency for granted, assuming you'll always be there, forgiving, waiting, reaching out. But then something unexpected happens. You stop. You no longer chase. You no longer explain. You no longer feed the cycle of pursuit and retreat. You simply disappear into calm silence. And for the first time, they are left with themselves. At first, they feel relief. The space feels comfortable, predictable, familiar. But slowly, that relief turns into restlessness. The silence, which once gave them safety, now begins to echo with loneliness. They start to realize that the very person who brought warmth into their life has become quiet, and that quietness hurts. This is where transformation begins. Not in your words, but in your absence. Because your absence is not punishment, it's revelation. It reveals what your presence once shielded them from, the reality of their own emotional emptiness. You see, as long as you were chasing, they never had to confront their own fear of intimacy. They could point fingers, saying, "You're too much, you're too emotional," or "I just need space." But when you step back, those excuses collapse. There's no one left to project onto. No one left to carry their avoidance for them. And now, in the silence, they begin to feel what you felt. The confusion, the disconnection, the ache. They start to recognize that emotional safety doesn't come from running away. It comes from connection. But by the time they realize it, your energy has shifted. You're no longer the same person they walked away from. This is the paradox that wakes an avoidant up. The moment they sense that your peace is genuine, that your world no longer revolves around them, they begin to feel the loss. But it's not just missing you. It's missing the version of themselves that felt grounded when you were near. They start to miss the emotional stability your energy provided, the calm presence that made their world feel less chaotic. Avoidants are masters of emotional suppression, but even they cannot outrun the truth forever. Eventually, every suppressed feeling surfaces, and when it does, it's your absence that becomes the teacher. Your silence becomes the mirror that reflects back everything they've avoided: fear, guilt, longing, love. And here's the beautiful part. Your absence also teaches you. It teaches you that your power was never in your ability to make them stay. It was in your ability to walk away with peace. Because when you do, you stop being the pursuer and become the lesson. They will remember how you didn't react. They will remember how you didn't chase. They will remember that when they pushed you away, you didn't beg, you breathed. This shift imprints on their subconscious. You've shown them what healthy love looks like: not chaos, not control, not emotional dependency, but calm self-respect. And that image will haunt them in the best way. Because from that moment forward, every relationship they encounter will be compared to the peace they felt in your presence and the silence they felt in your absence. You've now done something they didn't think was possible. You've made them feel safe through space. That's when avoidance begins to lose its grip. That's when they start to question, what if I was wrong about love? What if real connection doesn't mean losing control? So remember this truth: sometimes the most powerful message you can send is no message at all. Your absence becomes the echo of every word you no longer need to say. It becomes the lesson they didn't know they needed until you stopped giving it. because one day that avoidant who once ran from love will remember the calm they felt around you. And they'll realize the thing they feared the most was the thing that could have healed them all along. There comes a moment when you stop waking up thinking about them and start waking up thinking about you. That's when the true transformation begins. Because while you were chasing, your energy was focused outward. Your entire emotional world revolved around their presence or absence. But when you turn that energy inward, you create something the avoidant never expected: growth. Avoidants are used to being the center of emotional gravity. They've always had people chasing, explaining, trying to fix them. They thrive in that dynamic because it gives them control without vulnerability. But when you pull back and start evolving, when your energy shifts from obsession to expansion, they feel it. Energy doesn't lie. Even from a distance, they can sense when your attention is no longer orbiting around them. And that shift hits differently. Suddenly, they can feel your silence not as emptiness, but as abundance. Your glow changes. Your posture changes. Your words, if you even speak, carry more weight. You're not seeking closure anymore. You are the closure. You start pouring that energy into yourself, into your purpose, your body, your mind, your peace. You start discovering who you are outside of the chaos. And every time you rise, every time you post with confidence, every time you walk into a room with calm certainty, that avoidant, wherever they are, feels it, because energetically you're no longer attached through fear. You're connected through growth. That's the moment they begin to realize what they lost. Not just you, but the version of you that was willing to wait. Avoidants don't respond to words. They respond to energy. They may not consciously understand it, but subconsciously, they feel the vibration of change. And when they see that your world didn't end without them, it shocks them. It forces them to ask, wait, weren't they the one who needed me? How are they thriving without me? And that thought, that's the beginning of respect. Because for the first time, they see you as an equal, not a pursuer. They see that your love wasn't weakness, it was strength. That your silence wasn't passive, it was power. And that your distance wasn't a game, it was healing. When you grow instead of grieve, you reclaim every ounce of energy you once gave away. You become magnetic, not because you're chasing validation, but because you're embodying freedom. You're sending out a message stronger than any text could ever express. I've learned to love myself in the silence you left behind. And that message hits deep, because avoidants are drawn to what feels emotionally safe. But here's the secret: safety isn't created through chasing, it's created through grounded confidence. When they feel your calm, your consistency, your peace, without needing them, that's when they start to return. Not because you begged, but because you became the vibration of what they crave but cannot create emotional stability. Your growth also exposes their stagnation. While you've evolved, they're still hiding behind avoidance. They start to see the gap, the emotional distance between who you are now and who they still are. And that realization ignites something they rarely feel: admiration. They begin to see you as the person who didn't just survive heartbreak. You transformed from it. And that transformation becomes your ultimate message to them. You didn't break me. You built me. That's when everything flips. You're no longer reacting to their silence. They're reacting to your peace. You're no longer waiting for a message. They're replaying the last one you sent. You're no longer chasing connection. They're chasing clarity. Because now you've become something avoidants both fear and desire: a person they can't control, but deeply respect. Your growth doesn't just inspire them, it exposes their own emotional limitations. And whether they come back or not, you've already won. You've transcended the dynamic. You've turned pain into power, silence into transformation, and distance into direction. And that's when the universe rewards you, not with the same love you lost, but with the kind of love that matches your new vibration. So never underestimate the ripple effect of your healing, because while you're outgrowing the storm, they're still standing in the rain, wondering how you found the sun. The most magnetic energy in the world isn't beauty, charm, or words. It's emotional freedom. It's when you stop needing anything from someone, yet still remain open-hearted. It's when your love transforms from attachment to acceptance. And that's exactly what happens when you reach the point where you can honestly say, if they come back, Fine. If they don't, I'm still at peace. That energy, that peace, is what changes everything. You see, avoidants are drawn to control. They withdraw to feel safe, to feel that they're managing their emotions, their vulnerability, their identity. But when you stop reacting to that control, when you're no longer emotionally dependent on their return, you remove their illusion of power. You shift the dynamic completely. Because before, they could feel your pull, your need, your waiting, your hope. It gave them a sense of emotional leverage. But now you're untouchable, not cold, not bitter, just emotionally free. And the irony is, that's when your energy becomes irresistible. When you no longer chase, they begin to notice your absence. When you no longer check up on them, they begin to check on you. When you no longer wait for their validation, they begin to question why they needed to pull away in the first place. Your detachment creates emotional space, and in that space, attraction grows. Avoidants crave safety, but they confuse it with distance. What they truly want, even if they can't articulate it, is someone who can love them without losing themselves. And now, that's who you've become. You've reached emotional alignment, the space where you love without clinging, care without controlling, and let go without bitterness. That's why they feel pulled back, not because you've said anything, not because you've done anything, but because your energy has changed. You've stopped sending out the vibration of, I need you. Now, you radiate the energy of, I'm whole. And that's the most powerful shift a human being can experience. When they finally sense that your happiness no longer depends on their presence, it shakes them, because deep down they thought you would always be there. Waiting, chasing, hoping, but your evolution disrupts their pattern. They start to wonder, did they stop loving me? Did they move on? How did they find peace without me? Those thoughts are what begin to pull them back, not through manipulation, but through natural energetic law. What you release freely often returns with clarity. But here's the truth, by the time they circle back, you're not the same. You're not waiting for an apology to heal. You're not craving their attention to feel seen. You've built something far more powerful, self-trust. And that self-trust makes you magnetic to everything you once chased, not just in love, but in life. Because the same energy that lets you release an avoidant with peace is the same energy that attracts abundance, purpose, and true alignment. You now operate from fullness, not fear, from choice, not desperation, from power, not pain. So if they return, it's not because you begged, it's because your peace called them home. And if they don't, it's because your growth redirected you toward something greater. Either way, you win. Because the real victory isn't getting the avoidant to come back. The real victory is becoming the person who no longer needs them to. You've mastered the art of emotional sovereignty, and once you taste that level of peace, no one can take it from you. So remember this truth. You don't attract what you chase. You attract what you embody. And when you embody calm, confidence, and emotional freedom, even the people who once ran from your love start to feel drawn to it again. That's when the entire story changes. Not because they changed, but because you did. There comes a moment in every journey when you stop asking, why did they pull away? And start asking, what was this meant to teach me? That's when the real healing begins. Because you finally realize that their withdrawal was never about your worth. It was about their wounds. Their silence wasn't rejection, it was reflection. And while they were running from connection, life was preparing you for transformation. What once felt like abandonment now feels like redirection, because that distance didn't break you, it built you. The moment you sent that message, calm, composed, and filled with strength, something inside you shifted forever. You stopped begging for clarity and started standing in it. You stopped waiting for closure and became the closure. You stopped trying to prove your value to someone who couldn't see it, and instead, you started embodying it. That's when the energy changed. That's when the universe began responding differently. Not because they suddenly saw your worth, but because you did. And that's the lesson every heart must learn. Your peace is your power. When you protect it, you rise. When you stop chasing, you attract. When you stop needing, you begin receiving. You didn't lose the avoidant. You lost the version of yourself that thought you needed to chase love to feel loved. You became the stillness that commands respect, the calm that disarms fear, and the strength that speaks louder than words. That's the essence of true emotional mastery. Maybe they'll come back one day, curious, reflective, awakened by your silence. Or maybe they won't. But either way, you've already won, because your worth no longer depends on their return. You've evolved beyond the pattern. You've transformed longing into learning, heartbreak into healing, and silence into self-discovery. You no longer need them to validate your power. You've learned how to generate it from within. So, if you ever find yourself tempted to reach out again, pause, breathe, remember who you've become. You are not the person who begs for attention. You are the person who commands respect through peace. You are not defined by who stayed or who left. You are defined by how you rose. And one day, when that avoidant finally looks back at you, they won't see the person who chased them. They'll see the one who outgrew them. If this message found you in a season of confusion, heartbreak, or silence, I want you to remember something: you are not broken, and you were never the problem. Sometimes people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves, and when they run, it's not because your love was too much, it's because your presence revealed what they weren't ready to face within. So instead of waiting for the ones who pull away, start waiting for the one who shows up. That one person who doesn't get scared when things get real. The one who meets your peace with peace, your depth with understanding, your heart with safety. Because that's what you deserve, not someone who runs from your love, but someone who's ready to grow with it. And until that person finds you, keep building, keep healing, keep glowing. Because every time you choose calm over chaos and growth over grief, you're teaching the universe what kind of love you're ready for. You're no longer chasing. You're attracting. You're no longer explaining. You're becoming. So thank you for watching, for listening, for showing up for yourself. Because that's what this journey is really about. Not getting someone back, but getting yourself back. If this message spoke to your soul, hit that subscribe button, join this movement, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, stay grounded, stay powerful, and never forget your peace is your greatest message.